Introduction. This video examines a troubling event that occurred on September 2nd, 2025, and the carefully crafted stories spun around it. A U.S. military strike in the Caribbean claimed 9 lives. A subsequent strike, ordered by Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley, eliminated 2 survivors clinging to the wreckage. Despite these actions, Defense Secretary of the newly relabeled Department of War, Pete Hegseth, hailed Bradley as an American hero. To many, this was a clear war crime. In this video, I will spotlight the chasm between objective reality and the government narratives designed to shape public perception and opinion at the expense of the truth. This is a call to think for yourselves, guided by the Constitution, not political spin. We will explore the long-term impact of the Patriot Act, the various wars on terror, drugs, and poverty, and the enduring influence of Henry Kissinger. We will also examine vaccine mandates, the burgeoning surveillance state, and the shifting tides of soft power. By drawing parallels to historical flashpoints, the Gulf of Tonkin, the Iraq weapons of mass destruction, or WMD claims, My Lai, and Nuremberg, we will seek clarity through the lens of the Federalist Papers, Orwellian theory, and the Geneva Convention. I invite you to like and subscribe to join this journey of reflection on where we truly stand as a nation. Chapter 1, Part 1, Facts of the Event. Let's establish the facts. On September 2, 2025, Secretary Hegseth ordered a strike on a vessel alleged to be smuggling drugs. This occurred amidst a reported surge in Caribbean trafficking. The DEA noted that Colombian cartels handled 90% of U.S. cocaine in 2024, with maritime routes increasing by 15% as land borders tightened. The operation took place 50 miles off the Venezuelan coast, near a U.S. naval task force deployed to counter regional Russian influence. The initial strike, launched from the USS Arleigh Burke, killed 9 people. Satellite imagery and Coast Guard reports confirmed the aftermath, a debris field marked by oil slicks and human remains. However, drone footage captured a darker detail: 2 survivors clinging to wreckage in 6-foot swells. Admiral Bradley, head of Joint Special Operations Command, or the JSOC, consulted a military lawyer regarding rules of engagement. Citing an imminent threat based on intercepted radio chatter, Bradley ordered a second strike. A precision-guided missile from a Predator drone eliminated the survivors, leaving nothing for identification or humanitarian rescue, despite a Coast Guard cutter being positioned only 10 miles away. This event triggered a 2025 congressional probe. Hearings have revealed conflicting testimonies regarding the strike's authorization, including a disputed "no survivors" directive. While Hegseth continues to defend Bradley as a hero, internal logs suggest a kill everybody order may have originated from a late-night White House briefing on August 31st. The administration justifies the action by labeling the targets as narco-terrorists, citing a leaked memo aiming for a 10% reduction in drug flow. Conversely, critics argue this is a war crime under the Geneva Convention, noting the lack of forensic evidence of drugs and the excessive nature of the second strike. Senator Roger Wicker has demanded the release of the footage amidst growing international scrutiny. This fundamental clash between a targeted strike and a claimed act of heroism is where our focus begins. Chapter 1, Part 2, Defining the narrative. Let's define the official narrative. It is a curated story serving government interests, often clashing with objective reality, to maintain control. Our preamble, written in 1787, aimed for a perfect union, justice, and liberty, a covenant forged in revolution. In Federalist Number 23, Hamilton justified defense against external threats, while Number 51 demanded checks and balances to prevent tyranny. Today, those cautions are being tested by unprecedented executive overreach. The September 2nd narrative uses 2025's overdose crisis, where the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, reported 110,000 deaths, to cast Admiral Bradley as a hero and the victims as villains. It uses the fear of fentanyl to justify a kill order and rally a public whose approval of this administration has dropped 20%, according to 2025 Gallup polls. But look closer at the domestic narrative we are fed every day. We are told the economy is the envy of the world, with official reports boasting of low unemployment and steady growth. Yet, for the average citizen, the data doesn't match the grocery receipt. While the top 1% saw $50,000 in tax savings this year, everyday families face a narrative gap where stagnant median incomes of $60,000 clash with a 3.2% spike in the Consumer Price Index for essential goods. It is a calculated policy decision dressed up as economic inevitability, the false claim that economic hardship, rising prices, or stagnant wages isn't a result of specific government policies and choices. It's a narrative tool to make people feel powerless, so they won't demand accountability. Soft power, the influence of American values, once defined us through the Marshall Plan. To put that in perspective, the Marshall Plan was a 1948 initiative that provided over $13 billion, more than $150 billion today, to rebuild a shattered Europe after World War II. It was the ultimate exercise in leadership, proving that American power was rooted in mutual prosperity and the general welfare. Today, actions like the September 2nd strike, coupled with a domestic narrative that prioritizes corporate growth over that same general welfare, erode that standing. Globally, U.S. favorability has dropped to 35%, while China fills the vacuum with its $1.5 trillion infrastructure push, offering the world a different, albeit dangerous, story of stability. Chapter 2. Global and Historical Context. Part 1. A European wake-up call. Let's shift our lens across the Atlantic. While the U.S. grapples with the fallout of the Caribbean strike, Europe is sounding an alarm. Listen to this perspective from the continent. Europe is at a critical turning point. The American shield is slipping away. Washington has become the court of Nero, an incendiary emperor, submissive courtiers, and a buffoon under ketamine tasked with purging the civil service. This is a tragedy for the free world, but first and foremost, a tragedy for the United States. This isn't just rhetoric. It's a warning of America's decline. From Brussels to Paris, the U.S. strike off Venezuela is seen not as a show of strength, but as a signal of internal chaos. Our allies are watching as Washington sides with aggressors at the UN and humiliates leaders like Zelensky in the Oval Office. Europe is now pursuing strategic autonomy, building a defense neglected since 1945. They are discussing frozen Russian assets and a military alliance led by figures like Friedrich Merz. They realize that if Ukraine falls, Moldova, Georgia, and Southern Europe are next. Putin's goal is a return to a new Yalta, where half the continent is ceded to a dictator. The real fight is for moral rearmament. As American protests grow and even outlets like Fox News begin to shift, the fate of democracy depends on those willing to stand against the totalitarians of the 21st century. The ripple effects of the September 2nd strike, the economic strain, and the human cost are felt in every home, from San Jose, California, to the streets of Europe. Chapter 2, Part 2. The Erasure of Due Process. Let's look at what was truly destroyed in that second strike. It wasn't just a vessel, it was the possibility of justice. Under the Geneva Convention and our own Constitution, even those accused of the most heinous crimes are afforded a day in court. By opting for a precision missile instead of a humanitarian rescue, Admiral Bradley ensured there would be no testimony, no forensic discovery, and no defense. Reports indicate that despite the high-tech surveillance used, no physical evidence of drugs has ever been produced from the wreckage. We are left with the government's word against a ghost ship. This kill-first mentality has devastating ripples. I've seen the accounts, including the heartbreaking testimony of a Colombian woman whose husband, a civilian, and presumably a fisherman, was killed when their vessel was mistakenly targeted by a missile. When the state decides to act as judge, jury, and executioner from a drone seat 1,000 miles away, we have moved beyond defense and into the realm of a war crime. We must ask ourselves, if the evidence was so clear, why was it necessary to ensure there were no survivors to speak? Chapter 2, Part 3, Reality versus Narrative. We must contrast the official story with the documented reality. The chain of events on September 2nd, from Secretary Hegseth's initial order to the final strike on the survivors, represents a clear escalation. Firing a missile at 2 incapacitated survivors clinging to debris is more than a tactical decision. It is a direct violation of both the Uniform Code of Military Justice and the Geneva Conventions, echoing the very crimes condemned at Nuremberg. Yet, the administration continues to spin this as heroism, even as leaked drone footage has been viewed by over 50 million people worldwide. While Russia and China remain silent, likely strategizing around our self-inflicted damage, other nations are already reacting. Brazil has shifted trade priorities toward China, and Mexico has raised the threat of border tariffs. This erosion of trust hits home in a deeply personal way. We see the same systemic disregard for humanity in our domestic policies. Deporting residents who have lived here for over 50 years, including a 70-year-old California farmer, and revoking the visas of PhD students at institutions like the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, and Stanford. These actions breach 80 years of American prestige built since the era of former President Harry Truman, 1945 to 1953. Hegseth's boast that we possess the greatest military force feels less like a promise of security and more like the pride that comes before a fall. The current state of international relations is a daily burden. I am anxious about visiting Colombia to see the woman I love and intend to marry, and who was deported from the U.S. because of the way my partner is being marginalized by U.S.-driven policies. I fear a future where Americans lose the security we once had, as other countries begin to adopt the same restrictive measures we have implemented, leaving American travelers in a vulnerable position as a direct result of our own nation's foreign policies. The administration's claim of drug recovery in the Caribbean echoes the Gulf of Tonkin or the Iraq WMD claims, narratives built on ghosts. Whistleblower reports from within the Navy confirm that no drugs were found in the wreckage. Public distrust has plummeted to 70%, and our surveillance state now tracks hundreds of millions of calls and faces, leading to documented cases of wrongful arrests based on faulty facial recognition. Why do they maintain these narratives? The answer is power, not trust. This disconnect isn't new. It mirrors the cover-up of My Lai and the $2 trillion cost of the Iraq War. Today, by targeting the helpless and ignoring the lack of evidence, we are surrendering the moral high ground we've held since 1945. Questions we must ask. What was the true nature of Hegseth's order? Why were survivors targeted instead of rescued? Were the victims truly cartel members, or were they merely fishermen caught in a narrative of convenience? Chapter 2, Part 4, The Citizen's Guide to Thinking for Yourself. The September 2nd strike demands we think for ourselves, not simply swallow the hero narrative. To cut through the spin, we need a guide rooted in reason. Strategy 1. Challenge official assumptions. Start by questioning the official line with hard data. For instance, the Drug Enforcement Agency, or DEA, reported 200 tons of cocaine seized in 2024, yet a Navy ensign leak on 12/05/2025 revealed no drugs were found on the struck boat. Contrast the narco-terrorist claim against Coast Guard satellite imagery 9/02/2025 and drone footage suggesting the victims were merely fishermen. This isn't a new tactic. It mirrors the 1964 Gulf of Tonkin incident, where a fabricated attack was used to escalate the Vietnam War. Strategy 2. Synthesize diverse perspectives. True synthesis requires looking past a single source. Contrast the White House defense on 8/31/2025 with the Organization of American States, OAS, founded in 1948, a 34-member alliance of North, South, Central Americas, and Caribbean nations, which condemned the strike. Meanwhile, alarm is spreading across Europe. While Hegseth's narrative dominates the airwaves, leaked drone feeds with 50 million views show survivors, not threats. Truth only emerges when you blend these conflicting perspectives. Strategy 3. Deconstruct media volatility. Notice how quickly the narrative shifts. Even Fox News transitioned from staunch Trump support to critique by 12/15/2025. Instead of letting headlines dictate your reality, dig into primary data, like the Project on Government Oversights or POGO's, report of 5,000 facial recognition misidentifications, or the National Security Agency's massive call tracking history. Use Socratic dialogue by asking questions to stimulate critical thinking with your peers. Ask if a kill everybody order can ever be reconciled with Geneva Article 12, a wartime guideline which states that the military must protect and care for the wounded and shipwrecked persons. Practical steps toward independence. Reasoning independently is an active process. Demand transparency by petitioning for the release of full footage by January 2026. Use not-on narratives to share your findings and host local discussions to decode these events. As Kant urged with sapere aude, or dare to know, in 1784, it is time to shed intellectual immaturity and to reason for ourselves. Independent thought exposes the strike's fundamental flaws, the absence of drugs, and the violation of law. By choosing truth over power, we prepare for our next look at how the Federalist Papers guide this fight. 2. Part 5. The Federalist Filter Section. A. The suppression of truth as a constitutional breach. We are told the Federalist Papers were written to build a powerful government, but James Madison knew that power required a corrective. In Federalist Number 49, he argued that the people are the only legitimate fountain of power, and that we must be able to appeal to that power to fix defects in the government. When the government hides the September 2nd drone feeds or suppresses the Navy ensign leaks, they are doing more than managing a public relations crisis. They are strategically blocking Madison's appeal to the people, the logic. You cannot fix a defect you aren't allowed to see. The reality. By withholding the footage that shows fishermen instead of narcos, the executive branch short-circuits the Republic's safety valve. They turn the fountain of power into a closed loop where the government is only accountable to itself and not to the population of the United States. Section B. Madison's warning on reason. Madison believed our reason must control the government. But if the government controls the information that feeds our reason, they have effectively dismantled the system. Demanding the September 2nd, 2025 video footage isn't just a request for transparency, it is a Madisonian act of self-defense. Without the data, the Constitution is reduced to a parchment barrier that can be ignored at will. Section C. Hamilton and the Energy Trap. The narrative peddled by the media today, and by figures like Hegseth, is that a strong executive needs total energy to protect the nation. They use this to justify the September 2nd strike as a necessary split-second decision. They want you to believe that questioning the kill everybody order is a sign of weakness. In Federalist Number 70, Alexander Hamilton did argue for a vigorous executive. He knew a weak leader was a recipe for a bad government. But the modern talking points leave out the second half of Hamilton's equation: responsibility. The talking point. The president must act decisively to stop narco-terrorists. This is the narrative of speed. The Hamilton check. Hamilton wrote that the executive must be narrowly watched and held to a strict responsibility to the people. Section D. The kill everybody narrative versus rule of law. If an order is given to kill everybody, violating Geneva Article 12, it is often framed in the media as doing what has to be done. But Hamilton warned that a leader who acts outside the law isn't energetic. He is a feeble leader of a broken system. This is also a direct assault on the rule of law. By creating a situation where the government thinks for the people by withholding drone feeds and suppressing leaks, they are flipping Hamilton's script. They are using the executive's power to blind the people's judgment. The term rule of law is the principle that no one is above the law, but rather that the law stands above every official. That power is exercised through clear, pre-established rules, and that laws are applied fairly, equally, and transparently to everyone, including to the whole of the government itself. It is the guardrail of liberty. Without it, society is governed by the rule of whim, or the changing moods or desires of those in power. This inevitably leads to tyranny and the loss of individual rights. Rule of law is important because it is the only thing protecting the individual from the raw power of the state. Chapter 3, Part 1, Narrative, Law, and the Decline of Moral Authority. Section A, The Moral Crisis of Expediency. The moral crisis, presented by calling a missile strike on 2 incapacitated survivors clinging to boat debris an act of heroism, is a direct challenge to the very foundation of international law and American values. This erosion of legal and moral standards at the highest level, from Hegseth's broad directive to Bradley's execution of the second strike, is the single greatest danger to the nation's integrity, domestically and abroad. It tells the world that our rule of law is disposable when political expediency demands it. Section B, Sapere aude, the call to reason. To combat this, we must heed the foundational wisdom of Immanuel Kant's What is Enlightenment? Written in 1784, it urges individuals to shed the shackles of self-imposed immaturity and dare to know, or sapere aude, by using their own reason, rather than blindly accepting the dictates of authority. Section C, the precedent of impunity. The Constitution guarantees your right to question and is the tool designed to keep the government in check. The failure to challenge blurry directives, from the overreach of the Patriot Act's surveillance to the sudden arbitrary implementation of COVID-19 vaccine mandates, provided the very precedent for Hegseth and Bradley's impunity on September 2nd. Chapter 3, Part 2, Constitutional Breaches and the Human Cost Section. A, the bypassing of external checks. The Federalist Papers serve as our constant warning. Federalist Number 51 guarantees external checks, the oversight of Congress, and the power of the judiciary, which are currently being bypassed by the executive narrative, allowing for an unchecked exercise of force. Section B, factionalism and the targeting of minorities. Furthermore, Federalist Number 10 emphasizes the critical protection of minority rights against the tyranny of a ruling faction. This protection is clearly breached by the disproportionate targeting of Latino and other minority communities under a manufactured reality designed to divide and distract, while the powerful consolidate their position and erode civil liberties. Section C, the economic narrative versus the general welfare. This requires demanding accountability for the erosion of our economic stability. We must question the narratives that justify tax cuts for the top 1%, while median incomes stagnate and poverty persists. We must challenge the narratives that allow rising costs for essential services like healthcare, placing a cruel and unnecessary burden on the working population. The failure of the government to honor the preamble's objective to promote the general welfare is fundamentally a failure of narrative that prioritizes corporate power over public well-being. This is not simply a business cycle, it is a calculated policy decision dressed up as economic inevitability. The false claim that financial hardship, like rising prices or stagnant wages, is a natural, unstoppable force rather than the result of specific government policies and choices. It is a narrative tool used to make people feel powerless and convince the public that hardship is unavoidable. This discourages them from demanding accountability for the specific policy choices, such as billionaire tax cuts and corporate subsidies, a series of policies that actually created this crisis. Section D. The militarization of domestic policy. Furthermore, we must hold the line against the continued militarization of domestic policy, a grim echo of the war on drugs that led to mass incarceration and the destruction of generations of Black and brown families. When Immigration and Customs Enforcement raids small businesses and deports long-term residents and scholars under the banner of national security, it is a gross perversion of the preamble's goal to establish justice. The aggressive policies targeting legal residents and cutting essential education visas are actively dismantling the very human capital and social stability that once defined the American promise. Chapter 3. Part 3. Call to Action. Section A. Reclaiming independent thought. We must reclaim the spirit of independent thought, reject automatic reliance on media or government spin, and uphold the values that built this nation. It's not just our right, it's our duty. For the 250 years' worth of American veterans who gave their lives so we would remain free. Section B. Demanding transparency and accountability. I urge you to act. Contact your representatives. Demand the video footage of the missile strike on the 2 men clinging to a broken boat instead of being rescued, per the UCMJ, Geneva Article 12, and international law. Demand answers to the fundamental questions. What was Hegseth's full order? Why did Bradley strike survivors against the laws of war? Who were the victims, fishermen or cartel? What real threat did they pose? Section C. Joining the movement. Share this video and use Natch on Narratives on all platforms. Fill the comments with your thoughts, your dissent, and your demands for truth. Section D. Final summary of the cost. The cumulative cost of these aggressive policies targeting legal residents and cutting essential education visas is the erosion of our national character. By uprooting these individuals, we are doing more than just enforcing a border. We are sabotaging the intellectual and social foundations that have historically underpinned our global standing. This systemic hollowing out of our communities replaces long-term stability with short-term theater, sacrificing the very excellence that once defined American prestige. Demand the truth. Chapter 3, Part 4. Constitutional Reckoning and Global Pressure. Section A. The Preamble's Betrayal. The Preamble. To form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty, is a promise to the people, not a license for unchecked power. Yet, the strike shatters it. Common defense was perverted into an attack on unarmed survivors, as drone footage shows no drugs or threats, just fishermen adrift, as well as broken debris, a substantial oil slick, and floating body parts. Justice erodes with the Secretary of Defense branding a war crime heroic, bypassing judicial review. Federalist Number 23 allows defense against cartels, but Navy leaks confirm zero contraband. Number 51 mandates checks, yet the 2025 probe stalls. This echoes Number 10's warning against factional tyranny. The Uniform Code of Military Justice and Geneva Conventions condemn this strike, aligning with Nuremberg's precedent, the legal standard that holds officials accountable for state-sponsored crimes against humanity. The Constitution, once a bulwark, now sags under executive overreach. Section B. Global Pressure. The World's Judgment. Humanitarian Crisis. The strike's fallout is not contained. The Organization of American States, OAS, the premier regional forum for democracy and human rights in the Americas, has formally condemned the attack. Representing 34 independent nations from across the Americas and the Caribbean, this historic body has turned its gaze on the missile strike targeting two men desperately holding onto the side of a broken boat. What was once domestic policy has now been elevated to a global tragedy. Economic threat. All this while BRICS nations, that economic and political bloc of nations, conceived of by Russia and supported by China, are using this moment to leverage their rival $45 trillion trade bloc in a direct challenge to the US dollar. Russia and China stay silent, strategizing. Europe, alarmed, debates sanctions, with France and Germany reviewing NATO ties. US favorability has dropped to 35% globally as nations shift to China's Belt and Road Initiative. Brazil's trade pivot and Mexico's tariff threat reflect this drift. This global pressure isn't just economic, it's a moral indictment, pushing allies away as the US stumbles. Section C. Action steps. Reclaiming the covenant. We must act to restore the preamble's intent. Demand the footage by January 2026. Petition your representatives under Article 3. Aim for 1 million signatures via #OnNarratives. Host town halls in cities like Florida and California with legal experts, streaming to reach millions. Hold the responsible agencies accountable, using leaked feeds as evidence, pressing for UN oversight. These steps echo Federalist No. 57's call for representative duty. Personally, this hits home. My fear of visiting Colombia, to see the woman I love who was arrested and detained, handcuffed and shackled, with her then 14-year-old son in San Diego, California, while waiting for an appointment with an adjudicator to plead her asylum request. They were put onto a military jet and deported to Colombia, all without due process, all for the crime of wanting to have a chance for a new life, and for the crime of being in love with me. Yet, through all of this, they punish me as well, as I continue to strive for her, love her, and wait for her. I will put a wedding ring on her finger. I will bring her and her son home, here in the United States. These many faces of injustice reflect the strike's human cost. Restore law or lose standing.
Section D. Closing this reckoning is ours.
Uphold the Constitution, demand truth, and resist the narrative's decay. The world watches. Our action defines America's future. Chapter 3, Part 5, Global Sanctions, The Ripples Hit Hard. Section A. The backlash ignites. The hero's spin on the September 2nd strike is crumbling. Its ripples are triggering global sanctions that slap the U.S. awake. The world sees through the lie. The OAS condemned the strike, and a UN resolution nearly passed, stopped only by U.S. lobbying. Europe's trust fractures. France and Germany eye 10% tariffs. BRICS, now 15 strong with $45 trillion trade, plots a dollar rival. Russia and China stay silent, but their $500 million Venezuela loan screams opportunity. Brazil cuts U.S. imports 15%, and Mexico threatens 20% tariffs. Reality bites the narco-terrorist narrative, exposed by drone leaks showing no drugs. Section B. The hard-cost sanctions hit like a hammer. Trade with the European Union could shrink 15%, spiking the consumer price index to 5%. The Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, also known as SWIFT, a secure messaging system that 11,000-plus banks use, could freeze up to $400 billion in U.S. assets, reflecting the economic disruption Russia faced in 2014, and with $100 billion lost in 2014. Diplomatic isolation threatens as NATO faces strain, and U.S. favorability plummets to 35% globally. Pew Research 2025. China's Belt and Road Initiative advances strategically, yet Gwadar, a port in Pakistan, serves as a warning of debt-trap diplomacy, struggling to repay $30 billion in loans and ceding 91% of control of its port to China. This failure is seen as a byproduct of aligning too closely with China's Belt and Road Initiative. The cost of this spin? Not just dollars, but lost trust, exposing China's narrative of prosperity as a house of cards. Section C. The wake-up call. Don't buy the spin. Question the security claim. Check the leaks. The ripple is your cue. Think for yourselves. Share, hatch on narratives. This isn't policy, it's a mirror to the lie. Section D. Closing these sanctions ripple from a cracked narrative. Open your eyes. The truth demands it. Chapter 3, Part 6. Unraveling the Narrative Machine Section. A. Crafting the spin. Narratives are engineered. Hegseth's spin relies on White House memos and early media cheer, despite Navy leaks showing no drugs. This machine echoes the Gulf of Tonkin and the Iraq WMD lies. The Patriot Act's surveillance and facial recognition misidentifications feed control, while media bends, Orwell's 2 + 2 5 lives here. Drone leaks have exposed fishermen, not foes, cracking the facade as public trust falls to 25%. Section B. Past collapses. Historical lessons. History shows this machine's limits. My lie hid over 500 killings until photos proved murder. The Nuremberg trials that rejected the Nazis just following orders excuse condemned the targeting of the helpless, a principle breached by that second strike. From Kissinger's drug war to vaccine mandates, these narratives eventually fall when faced with primary evidence and the 70% distrust reported by Gallup. Section C. Breaking the spin. Your critical edge. You can dismantle it. Question the security spin. Compare Navy leaks to OAS critiques. Synthesize Europe's alarm with government lines. Resist media shifts. Check declassified NSA data held by the National Security Archive through Freedom of Information Act FOIA requests, and ask, does Geneva Article 12 fit? Share via #on narratives. This isn't just action, it's an awakening, as Kant's sapere aude demands. Section D. In conclusion, the machine unravels with your critical ear. See through the spin. This is your power, ending our journey. And don't forget, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. Though perhaps never written by George Orwell, it definitely captures his themes and perfectly reflects the spirit of his warnings about totalitarianism and propaganda found in works like 1984. It was required reading in high school. I never thought I'd be reflecting on it so much at almost 60 years old. Outro. This video has been brought to you by Outward Divergence. Please like and subscribe for more opinion pieces on events that affect us as Americans. On that note, Amanda B. reckoned with. Best friends with Silence Dogood, thank you Ben, and Penny Lane, thank you John and Paul. Signing off. Thank you for subscribing. God bless you all.